welcome. I am Naomi Datta and this is Storyboard. Every week we will take you to places where brands go to find their consumers. As the business of brands changes, we will be your one-stop guide to understand, document and contextualize this change. Maybe it's better we demonstrate what we mean by cutting to the chase to show you what's lined up on the show today. Coca-Cola's experiment with experiential marketing works big time. But the big question, will Indian marketers show similar innovation? Ford India puts the consumer in the driver's seat for the EcoSport launch. And why we are watching Pepsi's new campaign closely. There's that and much more on Storyboard today. Let's get things started. First up, experiential marketing is a tool that has intrigued many an eager marketer. Quite simply because if you can get it right, you engage with the consumer in a way that traditional media can only dream of. In fact, last year, Coca-Cola got it bang on with its Coke Zero promotion for the latest James Bond film, Skyfall. On the face of it, it seemed deceptively simple. Buy a can, get a free movie ticket. Only, nothing is ever as simple as it seems. Now that we've got you sufficiently intrigued, Animesh Das gets us the details.
Whew. Imagine heading out to get yourself a Coke, but getting a lot more than you had bargained for. Imagine finding out that there is a little bit of James Bond in all of us. The brainchild of Belgian agency Duval Guillaume Modem, this idea was ingenious. Buy a Coke Zero and then get challenged to a 70-second dash to another platform at the Antwerp Central Station to get your free Skyfall tickets.
Oh my God, Anthony!
Sounds simple enough? Not if a number of obstacles are strategically placed in your way.
If you look at our liquid and link strategy, at its core, we're talking about the integration of brand experiences that create brand content that then fuel a brand conversation. And the 007 activation, as you're referencing, does a really great job with that. So it's an experience had by a few that creates content that's really share-worthy, that gets shared and then fuels a brand conversation that's much larger than a conversation we could have created by ourselves.
An 80-member cast and crew came together to put this on-ground activation in place. In 2 days, at least 70 people channeled their inner bond. The best moments made it to this 2-minute film, and Coke had a hit on its hands. 9.8 million viewers have viewed it on YouTube so far, and it's been shared over 976,000 times on Facebook, Twitter, and various blogs.
When you're thinking about activation in the social space, what we're looking for is how far we can reach using an initial audience, as I said, to reach an ultimate audience. We're looking at the sentiment and disposition of the comments and the expressions around that. What we also do is get people engaged in the content and helping us share it. And in the process of that, we start to form a relationship with those consumers. And then we can fuel an ongoing dialogue with them from there because they've opted in to have that conversation with us.
Coke says that in January, 2 months after the campaign broke, this became the most shared ad in Bond history. It also entered Mashable's top 100 of most shared commercials. In spite of Skyfall exiting theatres 3 months back, this ad continues to clock in the viewers. So the big question is India ready for this kind of communication? A big collaborative effort that certainly isn't textbook advertising. In Mumbai, Animesh Das.
That does set new benchmarks for experiential marketing. But remember, that was a global example. We turn our attention now to ask the somewhat inevitable question, is India ready for such communication? To help answer that, Storyboard's editor Anant Rangaswamy met two of India's biggest marketers, Chandramouli Venkateshan from Cadbury and Visa's Shubhranshu Singh.
You've just seen this, I don't even know what to call it. Is it an ad? Is it an activation? What is it? And you at Cadbury, are you looking at stuff like this right now?
I think all of us are now in this journey of what you can call as holistic consumer engagement. And I think for different brands, we are doing different stuff. But what at the core of it, what it calls for is a degree of experimentation, a degree of trying to do different things, while at the same time trying to have an idea which integrates so many things that you do.
Subhanshu, you're also sort of experimenting now. You did your last debit card commercial, which sort of broke some rules within your own company, I think. So how do you react to this?
I think, Anand, the bigger challenge is how do you engage and reach consumers everywhere across the country and in the world indeed. And I think one of the fundamental shifts that's happened is we've moved away from a broadcast era into something that demands engagement. And engagement will happen only when you're interesting to people. So I think this halfway mix between entertainment and advertising is here to stay.
One of the thoughts that strikes me is that there are extraordinarily new demands on the marketing professionals now.
Right.
Today it looks like you, the marketer, is going to be at the center of all such communication as opposed to an agency, because there's so many sort of vendor partners you will have.
Yes, and I think that's true. But I'd like to qualify that by saying that it's not really the marketer who's at the center of it all. I think finally the consumer is at the center of it all. I call it the shift from what used to be the rate card era into what's now the wild card era. And if you like, I'd explain that. We've now moved to an era where there are people who are putting out content, and if they like what you put out, they will spoof it, they will twist it, they will steal it, and you in turn will applaud that, saying, look, that's evidence of success. So I think from the era where there was no filtering for quality, and if you were willing to cut a fat check, everything good or bad was being put out into the broadcast machine, that's now fundamentally changed.
Molly, what about you? I mean, how has your role changed?
I think the integrated communications model, if
Right.
we can use that word, does call for change in what I would call as the ecosystem that creates it. I think earlier the ecosystem was linear. It was between the brand owner and a entity, which was often the agency, and
Right.
then you manage. I think you have a little more of a non-linear model right now. There are many people involved, and hence I think it's not just the nature of relationships, but the behaviors of people that are starting to become crucial. I think the attitude of being collaborative.
Right.
Because genuinely big ideas click when multiple entities come and make it work. And hence often the role of the marketer is not in just putting the partnerships together, but in engendering the right the behaviors in those partnerships.
Now, both of you have commercials that continuously hit high numbers, in the high millions. So, when you see so much of free media coming to you, do you rethink your media plan itself, your media spends?
No, see, to start with, for example, numbers. We have had commercials which have hit 10 million,
Right.
and we have also stuff that has done 50,000.
Right.
Right? So clearly there is viewership out there. At this moment, I think there are two kinds of content we are putting out. One is, if you look at it, the TVC,
Right.
where you are really treating digital as an alternate channel.
Right.
Right? Now, I think when you do a TVC, it's not just about the creative and the message. There are also business imperatives behind it in terms of the time in which it must have impact. You have got lined up business initiatives, sales initiatives, trade initiatives, and hence I think basic television advertising becomes important because there's a little more certainty
Right.
to how you ramp up, the fact that you can deliver X value within a certain time period, etc. It's still very important. But there's alternate kind of stuff which I'm doing, for example. So if you go back to, one of the big efforts we had done was to get Cadbury Dairy Milk to be used post dinner
Right.
as a meter. Now the alternate kind of, so while there was mainland TV advertising, there was huge amount of engagement. The nature of engagement was we were actually sponsoring parties at consumers' homes, which were dinner parties, which was followed by a chocolate dessert. These used to be entirely edited into a nice film, and we used to put on YouTube. Now that kind of stuff goes only on YouTube. So I think you have three kinds of stuff. One is where you do mainline TV, where YouTube is add-on, right? The second is really of the nature where it's truly multimedia. And third, where you're really leading from YouTube and saying, this is how it builds.
Subhanshu, so how are you seeing your paid media versus?
I don't think we should be looking at this stage because of evidence of early success to suggest that we can substitute
Right.
the traditional way in which we built a plan. But I do want to say that it is pretty much the end of what would be called lazy marketing, as in you can't depend on simple advertising outlay or plan monies to get you the reach. You cannot buy attention off of a rate card anymore. And I think it's something to be celebrated because the medium has not been decoded fully, Anand. So I think,
Right.
I don't know why it has to be a Cola Berry D or a Gangnam Style or a Skyfall or a Harlem Shake, and why not three others. Till that happens conclusively, we have to depend on conventional advertising.
Thank you, Subhranshu. Thank you, Chandramouli. This is just the beginning of a very exciting journey, but the consensus is that it's a little bit in the future. The predictable money will still go towards the predictable, measurable marketing tasks, but the challenges are there. This will work, and we're going to see more of stuff like this in India in the time to come.
Agencies that Storyboard spoke to said that spends on activations and experiential ideas went up by almost 40% last year. Clearly, this is an experience that is here to stay. Time for a break on Storyboard. Coming up ahead, Ford India gears up for the launch of the EcoSport with a pre-launch campaign that changes the rules of the game.